My name is Tessa, and I'm 15 now. Looking back at everything that's happened, it's hard to believe how much my life has changed in just 2 years. I guess that's what happens when your whole world gets turned upside down, twice. It all started when I was 13. My parents got divorced, and Mom got to keep our house. I stayed with her, of course. Dad agreed to pay a lot in alimony. I overheard Mom bragging about it on the phone once, saying she'd finally gotten what she deserved. Why did you and Dad split up? I asked Mom countless times in those first few months. But she'd just shake her head and give me the same answer. Your father made his choice, Tessa, she'd say, her voice hard and cold. He doesn't want to be part of our lives anymore. He doesn't want to see you. It's better if you just accept that. But how could I accept something that made no sense? My dad, who used to call me his little scientist and spend hours helping me with my homework, how could he just stop wanting to be my father? It hurt so much that sometimes I couldn't breathe thinking about it. Then the emails started coming. Every holiday, like clockwork, I'd get an anonymous message. Nothing fancy, just simple words of love and encouragement. The first time I saw one, my heart nearly stopped. I knew it had to be from Dad. Who else would write, "Keep reaching for the stars, sweetheart," the same thing he used to say every night before bed? I never told Mom about the emails. I couldn't. Just mentioning Dad's name would make her face twist up like she'd tasted something bitter. After the divorce, Mom quit her job. She said she needed time to heal, but I'm not stupid. Dad's alimony checks were more than enough to keep us comfortable. She spent her days redecorating the house and going to yoga classes, saying she was finding herself. Then Mark came into the picture. Mom said she met him at one of her yoga classes, and suddenly our house was filled with talk about new beginnings and blended families. Before I knew what was happening, Mark and his kids, Tommy, who's 13, and Sarah, who's 11, had moved in with us. That's when everything really changed. Mom turned into this completely different person, fawning over Tommy and Sarah like they were precious china dolls that might break. She'd spend hours helping Sarah with her hair and making Tommy's favorite meals, while I sat at the kitchen table feeling like a ghost in my own home. Mom, I said one day, when I couldn't take it anymore, it's like you've forgotten I exist. She looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before, part pity, part annoyance. Don't be selfish, Tessa. Tommy and Sarah lost their mother when they were just babies. They need extra attention and care. You should understand that. You're old enough now. Mom became obsessed with taking family photos. Every weekend, she'd dress us up like we were going to a fashion show, coordinating our outfits down to the smallest detail. Tommy and Sarah would get new clothes for these occasions, while I'd have to make do with whatever was in my closet that matched their color scheme. Tessa, stand behind Tommy, no, move to the left, try to smile more naturally, Mom would direct, adjusting her phone camera for the perfect angle. Sarah, sweetie, tilt your head just a bit. Perfect. These photo shoots would go on for hours sometimes. Click after click, pose after pose, until Mom got exactly what she wanted for her social media feed. The worst part came afterward, when she'd show off the results at every family gathering. Look at how many likes this one got, she'd gush to Aunt Karen or Uncle Pete. Everyone says we look like the perfect family. Don't the kids look amazing together? You'd never guess they weren't always siblings. I'd stand there, feeling like a prop in someone else's play, while Mom bragged about our beautiful blended family to anyone who would listen. The photos never showed the reality, how Sarah would roll her eyes whenever I entered a room, or how Tommy acted like I didn't exist. The hardest part wasn't the fake smiles or the endless posing. It was being cut off from Grandma Rose, my dad's mother. After the divorce, Mom made it clear that visiting her was out of the question. I missed Grandma's warm hugs and the way she'd listen to me for hours, really listen, not just pretend to while scrolling through her phone. Now all I had were memories of baking cookies in her kitchen and the sound of her laugh. Instead, I was stuck with Mom's relatives, who bought into her perfect family narrative hook, line, and sinker. They'd coo over Tommy and Sarah, praising Mom for being such an amazing stepmother, while I sat in the corner, wondering if I'd become invisible. As months passed, the distance between Mom and me grew wider than the Grand Canyon. She lived and breathed her new family, planning everything around Tommy and Sarah's schedules and preferences. Family movie night? Tommy, what would you like to watch? Weekend plans? Sarah, honey, where should we go for lunch? My opinion didn't matter anymore. I'd sit there during family discussions, watching Mom lean in eagerly to hear what restaurant Sarah wanted to try or which movie Tommy was interested in seeing. Sometimes I'd open my mouth to make a suggestion, but Mom would already be grabbing her keys, excited about Tommy's choice of the new superhero film or Sarah's pick of the fancy ice cream place across town. One Sunday morning, as they were all getting ready for another family outing, I stayed in my room. Nobody came to ask why. Nobody tried to convince me to join them. I could hear Sarah's voice through my door, saying, "Good, now we don't have to pretend to include her." Mom's response? Silence. Summer arrived with the kind of announcement that used to make me excited as a kid. Mom and Mark gathered everyone in the living room one evening, practically buzzing with enthusiasm. "We have amazing news," Mom announced, clasping Mark's hand. "We're planning a month-long trip to Europe." Tommy and Sarah immediately erupted in cheers. "Can we go to Paris?" Sarah squealed. "I want to see the Eiffel Tower." "And Barcelona," Tommy chimed in. "They have the best soccer stadium in the world." I sat there on the couch, watching them bounce around the room like lottery winners. Nobody looked in my direction. Nobody asked what I thought about spending a month in Europe. It was like I was watching a TV show about a happy family, one I wasn't part of. The morning of the trip started early. I was in my room, double-checking my packing list, when I heard something. Looking up, I saw Sarah standing by my dresser, holding my favorite blue swimsuit in one hand and a pair of scissors in the other. She was systematically cutting through the fabric, a small smile playing on her lips. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen. I knew Sarah didn't like me, she'd made that clear enough over the past 2 years. But this? This was different. This was cruel. I lunged forward, trying to grab the scissors from her hand. "Give me those." Sarah yanked back, and suddenly we were wrestling over the scissors. She was smaller than me, but surprisingly strong. As we struggled, she started screaming at the top of her lungs. "Help, Tessa's attacking me." The thunder of footsteps came pounding up the stairs. Mom and Mark burst into my room, finding us both red-faced and disheveled, the mangled swimsuit lying between us on the floor. "She tried to hurt me," Sarah wailed, immediately running to her father. "I was just standing here, and she went crazy." "That's not true," I protested. "She was cutting up my swimsuit." I was trying to stop her. Mom barely glanced at the ruined swimsuit on the floor. "What is wrong with you, Tessa? Are you really so jealous of Sarah that you'd physically attack her? Go to your room, and stay there until we leave for the airport. Clearly, you can't be trusted around Sarah." They left, taking Sarah with them. Through my closed door, I could hear Mom comforting her. "Don't worry, sweetie. We'll go to the mall right now and buy you some new clothes to help you feel better after this awful experience." I sat on my bed, staring at the pieces of my ruined swimsuit, listening to them leave for their shopping trip. Nobody bothered to ask if I needed a new swimsuit for the vacation. Nobody cared that I was telling the truth. Evening came, and we all gathered in the foyer with our luggage. Mom was checking her list one final time while Mark loaded bags into the waiting taxi. "I still think you don't deserve this trip after what you did to Sarah," Mom said, giving me a cold look. "But we can't leave you home alone for a month, so you'll have to come. Just try not to cause any more problems." Inside the airport, everything felt overwhelming. We made our way to the check-in desk, where Mom handed over all our documents. My stomach was doing nervous flips, maybe from the early morning, maybe from the tension, or maybe from something else I couldn't quite name. "Mom," I said, shifting uncomfortably, "I need to use the bathroom." She barely looked at me as she rummaged through her oversized purse. Fine, but hurry up. We can't miss our flight because of you. Should I take my bag? I asked, gesturing to my carry-on. Just leave it, she snapped. I'm not having you wander off with our documents and money. I nodded and headed toward the restroom signs, trying to navigate through the crowds. It took me longer than expected to find the bathroom. The signs were confusing, and I had to double back twice. By the time I finally found it and finished, probably 10 minutes had passed. But when I returned to the check-in area, my family was gone. At first, I thought I must have gone to the wrong counter. Mom, I called out, my voice getting higher with panic. Mark? People turned to look at me, but none of them were my family. I started running, my feet slapping against the shiny airport floor as I searched desperately. Maybe they'd gone through security already? But how could I follow? Mom had all my documents in her purse. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I had no phone, it was in my bag. No money, Mom had that too. No ID, no boarding pass, nothing. I ran back to the check-in area, then to the bathrooms again, then to the food court. Time seemed to blur as I searched frantically, my panic growing with each passing minute. People streamed past me, dragging their suitcases, hugging their families goodbye, living their normal lives, while my world was falling apart. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably just one, I couldn't run anymore. I stood in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by strangers, and burst into tears. Not quiet, dignified tears, but huge, gasping sobs that shook my whole body. Are you all right, sweetheart? A gentle voice broke through my crying. I looked up to see a woman in an airport uniform, her face creased with concern. Where are your parents? I tried to explain through my tears, the words coming out in broken gasps. They left. I just went to the bathroom, they had all my things. The woman's face changed as she understood what I was saying. She put an arm around my shoulders and led me through a door marked airport personnel only. Before I knew it, I was sitting in a small office while serious-looking people in security uniforms asked me questions and made phone calls. They reviewed the security footage, their faces growing grimmer as they watched. One of them was taking notes, writing up an official police report. It's confirmed, I heard one officer say to another. They checked in, waited until she was gone, then proceeded to their gate and boarded their flight. They've already taken off. Is there anyone we can call for you? One of the police officers asked, his voice gentler now. Any adult relatives who could come get you? I wiped my eyes with the tissue they'd given me. My dad, I said quietly, I haven't seen him in 2 years, but I know his name and where he used to work. They took down the information, and I heard them making calls in the next room. I sat there, wrapped in a borrowed airport blanket, trying not to think about the plane that was probably already over the Atlantic, carrying my mother and her real family away from me. Tessa, a familiar voice made me look up, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. Dad stood in the doorway, looking exactly like I remembered, but somehow different too. His hair had more gray in it, and he seemed tired, but his eyes, they were the same eyes that used to check for monsters under my bed and light up when I showed him my science fair projects. Dad, my voice cracked, and then I was running, and he was catching me in his arms like I was 7 years old again, and we were both crying. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. The drive to his place was surreal. I sat in the passenger seat of his car, stealing glances at him, afraid he might disappear if I looked away too long. He lived in a different part of the city now, in a large apartment building I'd never seen before. There's someone I want you to meet, he said as we rode the elevator to the 8th floor. My fiancée, Lisa. She's been my rock through everything. Lisa turned out to be a warm-faced woman with curly red hair who took one look at me and wrapped me in a hug like she'd known me all my life. You poor thing, she said, leading me to the kitchen. You must be starving. I'm making you a proper meal right now, no arguments. While Lisa busied herself with cooking, Dad and I sat at the kitchen table. The familiar smell of coffee filled the air. He still drank it the same way, black with just a touch of sugar. "Tessa," he said finally, his hands wrapped around his coffee mug. "I think it's time you knew the truth about what happened 2 years ago. That day, I came home early from work. I wasn't supposed to be there, but a meeting had been cancelled." His voice was steady, but I could see his hands shaking slightly. "I found your mother in our living room with Mark. They weren't just talking." I felt my stomach clench as I understood what he meant. When I confronted them, Mark tried to act tough. We got into a fight, not my proudest moment. Your mother tried to get between us, and one of us, I'm still not sure who, accidentally pushed her as we were struggling. She fell and hit the coffee table pretty hard. Dad's voice caught. There was blood on her face from where she'd hit it, and her hands were all scraped up. I tried to help her, but before I could, she looked right at me and said if I didn't do exactly what she wanted, she'd go to the police. She said she'd tell them I beat her, that she had the bruises to prove it. She said I'd go to jail, and I'd never see you again. He looked at me, his eyes full of pain. She gave me her terms: divorce, the house, alimony, and I had to stay away from you. Completely away. She said if I tried to contact you or tell you the truth, she'd follow through on her threat. The next morning, I was sitting at the kitchen counter, picking at my breakfast, when Lisa sat down next to me with a determined look on her face. "Tessa," she said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "My brother Michael is a family law attorney. He's really good at what he does, and I think he can help us with your situation." Dad looked up from his newspaper, hope flickering across his face. "You think he'd take the case?" "Are you kidding?" Lisa pulled out her phone. "When I told him what happened at the airport, he was ready to come over right then and there. He's just waiting for us to give him the go-ahead." Everything moved quickly after that. Michael turned out to be a tall man with Lisa's same red hair and kind eyes, but there was steel beneath his gentle demeanor. He sat with us at the dining room table, taking detailed notes as I told my story. He made some calls right there, his voice shifting into what Lisa called his lawyer mode. Within hours, he'd filed paperwork with Child Protective Services and the guardianship authorities. They took over the case immediately. Apparently, abandoning your kid at an airport gets people's attention. A couple days later, Dad suggested we visit someone special. "There's someone who's been missing you like crazy," he said as we drove through familiar neighborhoods. "Someone who never stopped asking about you." When we pulled up to Grandma Rose's house, my heart nearly stopped. It looked exactly the same: the yellow paint, the flower boxes in the windows, even the old porch swing where we used to sit and drink lemonade. The front door flew open before we even reached it. "Tessa," Grandma cried, and suddenly I was enveloped in one of her famous bear hugs, the kind that smelled like cinnamon and fresh laundry. "Oh, my sweet girl, let me look at you." We spent the afternoon looking through old photo albums, eating Grandma's famous chocolate chip cookies, and catching up on lost time. She showed me the birthday cards she'd written but couldn't send, kept safe in a drawer, along with newspaper clippings of my school's honor roll listings she'd saved. Days turned into weeks, and before I knew it, a month had passed. Mom and her perfect new family were still in Europe, living their best lives according to their social media posts. Every day, new photos would pop up on my feed: Sarah posing by the Eiffel Tower, Tommy at the Colosseum, Mom and Mark having romantic dinners in Paris. Not one of them tried to contact me. Not one message asking if I was safe, if I had somewhere to stay, if I was okay. Mom had my phone, my laptop, all my clothes, everything I owned except what I was wearing that day at the airport. But apparently, that didn't concern her at all. I'd log into my social media accounts from Dad's computer, and I could see they were all active. They'd post pictures, like other people's updates, comment on friends' posts. They could see I was online too. The little green dot next to my name made that clear. But nothing. Not even a single "hope you're alive" text. It was Dad's idea for me to be waiting at the house when they returned. I sat in the living room, my heart pounding as I heard the taxi pull up outside. Dad was hidden away in Mom's home office, waiting for the right moment. We could hear their voices through the front door, laughing and chattering about their amazing European adventure. The key turned in the lock, and they all burst in, loaded down with shopping bags and suitcases. They froze when they saw me sitting there. Well, Mom said, recovering quickly and plastering on a smug smile. Look who found her way home. Mark chuckled, dropping their bags by the stairs. See? We told you she'd be fine. That's when Dad stepped out of the office. The change in Mom's face was instant. Her smug smile vanished, replaced by shock and then fury. What the hell are you doing in my house? She shrieked, backing up against Mark. Get out right now. Dad stood his ground, his voice calm but firm. I'm here to tell you how this is going to go, Karen. I'm taking Tessa with me, permanently this time. I've already filed for full custody, and I'm suing for termination of your parental rights. The paperwork's already been filed with the court. Mom's face went white, then red. You can't do that. I can and I have, and that's not all. Dad's voice got harder. There's also the criminal charges for child endangerment. Abandoning a minor at an airport, that carries serious jail time. For both of you. He looked pointedly at Mark. You, Mom's voice shook with rage. You think anyone will believe you after what you did to me? I still have pictures of my injuries. I'll tell everyone how you beat me. Dad actually smiled then, but it wasn't a happy smile. Go ahead. My lawyer's already prepared for that old lie. But here's the thing, Karen, you didn't file a police report right away. And now you've destroyed your own credibility when you abandoned our daughter at an airport. It's all on video. Every single second of you walking away, boarding that plane, enjoying your European vacation while our 15-year-old daughter was left alone without money, phone, or ID. What kind of mother does that? Mom looked desperately at Mark, who seemed to be trying to fade into the background. No judge is going to believe your accusations now, Dad continued. Not after what you did. Not with the police report, the airport footage, the social media posts showing you didn't even try to check if your daughter was safe. You showed your true colors, Karen, and now you're going to face the consequences. The trial went faster than any of us expected. Michael said it was because the evidence was so overwhelming, the airport footage, the police report, the social media posts showing them gallivanting around Europe while I was abandoned. The judge didn't even need much time to make her decision. Mom lost all parental rights. The alimony payments Dad had been making were terminated immediately. He was granted full custody of me, which honestly felt like just making official what we all already knew. I was never going back to that house. Mom and Mark got 1 year of probation each, plus a fine that made Mark's face go pale when the amount was announced. I didn't feel any satisfaction watching them squirm in their seats. I just felt nothing. It was like watching the end of a movie about someone else's life. That was 6 months ago. Now I'm sitting in my new room in Dad and Lisa's apartment, trying to decide which earrings to wear to their wedding next month. Lisa asked me to be her bridesmaid, and the dress we picked out is hanging on my closet door, pale blue, like the summer sky. I don't know what happened to Mom and her real family after the trial. They moved away somewhere. I heard that from Aunt Jenny, who along with most of Mom's relatives, surprisingly took our side when they learned what happened. Blood doesn't excuse what she did to you, Aunt Jenny had said firmly. Grandma Rose comes over every Sunday for dinner now, always bringing her famous chocolate chip cookies and new stories about Dad's childhood that make him groan and me laugh. Sometimes we look through old photo albums together, but now we're making new memories too, filling up fresh pages with pictures of happy moments. I transferred to Riverside High after everything settled down. No way was I going to keep going to school with Tommy and Sarah. Turns out, it was the best decision ever. My new friends, especially Rachel and Kim, are the kind of real friends I never had at my old school. They don't know the whole story of why I transferred, but they know enough to understand why I sometimes get quiet when people talk about their moms. Sometimes I catch myself wondering about Mom, Mark, Tommy, and Sarah. But it's more like wondering about characters from a book I read long ago. There's a distance there, an unreality to those memories. I blocked them all on social media, not out of anger, but because I just don't need to know anymore. I'm done being the ghost in their perfect family photos. Dad says I'm stronger than he ever was at my age. Maybe he's right, but I think I'm just lucky. Lucky to have him, Lisa, Grandma Rose, and all the people who showed me what real family looks like, people who stand by you, who fight for you, who make sure you know you're loved.